and welcome to this episode of Beer to Whiskey. I'm Russ Heaps, and on my eternal quest to spread the gospel of good taste, today I find myself in the Bluegrass State. I'm in Lexington, Kentucky, and I'm at the Blue Stallion Brewery, and we're going to learn a little bit about it and what's going on. But first, as always, a little bit of shameless self-promotion. If you like what you see, look for the thumbs up on the bottom of the screen. Click on it. If you want to subscribe, at the end of the video, you'll see the little round Beer to Whiskey wood icon. Click on that, and you'll be all signed up. New videos every Thursday at noon, East Coast time. That's out of the way. So sitting with me today, I've got Caitlin O'Connor, and she is head of marketing here. She greases the wheels and keeps the train running on time, I guess. And across from me, we have Blue Stallion's owner, Corey Donnelly.
That's right.
And I want to thank you guys for the invite. Really, really happy to be here. Let's just talk a little bit about the brewery and how it got started. Corey, can you give me a little background on it?
Sure. So there are 5 owners, me and my 2 brothers, Zach and Xavier Donnelly. We have a chemical engineer, Jim Clemens, is one of the owners, and Nico Schultz is a German with a brewing background that's also an owner. And so that kind of got us started into the type of beers that we focus on primarily. We focus a lot on continental beers, German style lagers and some ales, some British style ales, and we do have some specialty seasonal American styles as well, but our flagships are German oriented. All of us were home brewers for, I don't know, now it'd be 15 or 17 years, but when we started, we'd been home brewing for about 10 years. We met each other about 7.5 or 8 years ago. We kind of realized very early on that we all had a similar passion for beer and a similar interest in opening a brewery in Lexington. And so over about 1.5 years of meeting with each other and brewing together, we developed a plan for Blue Stallion, and we pulled the trigger, put our money where our mouth was, and we got started. And so I think the community has really embraced craft beer here in Lexington, and to toot our horn a little, I think Lexington in general has fantastic craft beer, and we are in really great company here in Lexington with the other craft breweries. There's a ton of variety as far as styles goes, and ingredient experiments with some of the other breweries. We're primarily focusing on lagers, traditional brewing styles, and then we do some barrel aging and some experimental beer styles as well. But some other breweries are really focusing on the American styles, hop forward beers. Another brewery is focusing primarily on yeast experimentation and doing a lot of creative things with different styles of yeast. And so there's a ton of variety, and I think we fit really well in the niche of the lager production here in Lexington. And so we have been open for 5 years. We've grown quite a bit. You can see behind us there's quite a few tanks. We started with 6 fermenters, and now we have 10, although the 4 additional ones are 60 barrels, and our original 6 were 15 barrels. We have grown a decent amount.
Sure.
And again, Lexington has embraced us, and that's helped make us successful. So we're really happy about that.
How much production are you guys doing a year approximately?
This year will be somewhere near 2,000 barrels, which on the big scheme is not very big, but for a city of Lexington size, it's a fairly medium-sized brewery, I'd say.
I know you're canning some stuff. Mm-hmm. Are you retailing that anywhere? Is that being retailed anywhere?
As of right now, we are working on our second canning production. We're contracting with a firm that comes and brings the equipment and hooks it up to our tanks, and we can with them. This most recent canning, we did 4 different brands. We did our 2 of our flagships, our Helles and our Dunkel, which are Southern German styles. We also did a peanut butter porter and a fairly trendy, newer style New England IPA called Just a Phase. The Peanut Butter Porter, Hellas, and Dunkel are going to be out in local distribution, meaning Lexington, surrounding counties. The Just a Phase New England IPA is available here on site.
Where'd the Blue Stallion name come from?
So 4 of the 5 owners are Kentucky natives. My brothers and I are Lexington natives. We wanted the name to reflect the region and let people know in a subtle way that this is where we're from, this is what we're representing. So the blue is for the bluegrass region, and Lexington is also known as the horse capital of the world, and so that's where the stallion part comes from.
All right. Caitlin, how did you get here?
I drank here. I used to come as a customer 5 or 6 nights a week. I was here all the time, loved it, loved the beer, just really enjoyed the people who are a part of it, the people who come as customers, the people who worked here, obviously loved the product. And when a bartending position became open, I was like, me, please. And I just got so lucky that it happened to work out.
Were you bartending somewhere else, or what?
I was bartending in another local beer spot. It's called Lexington Beer Works, and they don't brew, but they host a bunch of really great craft beers on tap all the time.
And do you have, I know you are the marketing guru here, do you have a marketing background at all? Or,
I don't, so Corey really helps me out.
On the job training type thing? Well, that's kind of cool.
It is.
Way to take a chance.
I think we got lucky with Caitlin.
Oh, thanks, Corey.
Sure.
Well, she invited us here, so I guess that speaks for itself.
Absolutely.
That speaks for itself.
Thanks, Russ.
A boilerplate question I always ask is, Corey, what was the beer that grabbed your attention, the craft beer that got you started being interested in craft beers?
I think there's a lot that kind of influenced, my transition from national brand drinking to craft drinking. But the beer I think that I kept going back to and buying more frequently was a beer from Bell's Brewing in Michigan called Two Hearted Ale. It's an IPA. It's incredibly consistent. It's very tasty. It's a hop-forward beer that doesn't kind of rip at your tongue. And I just really enjoyed it. I think in comparison, you got to think this is back in the early 2000s when there wasn't a whole lot of variety yet, at least in Kentucky, for craft beer. And so having a beer like that was consistent for one, and also very tasty, but on a very different flavor spectrum from like Miller Lite or Bud Light or whatever. And so after kind of exploring craft beer, and especially Bell's Two Hearted Ale, I ended up homebrewing my first beer, and I loved it. So I'd probably give credit to Two Hearted Ale, but there's Sierra Nevada being around, and even Sam Adams in the 90s, when I first turned 21, I was like, this is different. This doesn't taste like what I thought beer was,
Sure. Before we got started, before you arrived, Caitlin and I were having a conversation, and she kind of intimated to me that you had to be dragged kicking and screaming into making an IPA here. What, for somebody that sort of found craft beer through IPAs, that's what was that all about?
So every brewery that I had ever visited had an IPA, and my experience, watching other customers ordering was almost everybody around me was ordering their IPA. And when they had 10 or 20 beers on their menu and that's the one everyone's ordering, it concerned me that that's all you'd be judged on. It didn't matter how good you were at other beer styles. If that wasn't tasty, it wasn't, and so we happened to open about 15 or 18 months later than the other two breweries in town, and they both had really good examples of IPAs.
Right.
And it made sense to us from a marketing standpoint to let's lay claim to the styles we're really good at. Let's do lagers. Let's focus on lagers. And if you don't have an IPA, you can't be judged solely on that.
Sure.
And so while a lot of people,
makes sense.
I mean, you watch people come in, they'd look at the menu and say, what's your IPA? And we'd say, well, we don't make an IPA, and a lot of them would turn around and leave. But I think over time, people started to understand that the Dunkel and Helles and Pilsner and Hefeweizen, those styles of beer. That was what we were going to make, and we were going to make them well. And so once we felt like we had kind of solidified that in the local mind, at least, that was what we were doing and what we were good at, then we started making an IPA.
I'm buying that story. Caitlin, what was your first foray into craft beer?
Oh, it's embarrassing. Probably, I started drinking like Blue Moon. I guess that's not embarrassing. But my husband would take me to Pazos and kind of teach me a little bit about beer, and kind of we would start playing around with different flavors and trying to find what I really liked. And then I started going to Lexington Beer Works and trying things like that too. I would visit some of the local breweries, but honestly, and I'm not trying to toot my boss's horn here, I really fell in love with craft beer at Blue Stallion. I think that's why I feel so connected to it. I just, would sit on these bar stools, and the bartenders were so patient with me, and I would try all sorts of different things. And then now, I can't really think of a style that I don't appreciate. So really, I kind of explored a little bit on my own, but Blue Stallion really helped me out.
Well,
man. I don't know if I heard that story before,
well, no.
right?
Aw, shucks.
You get rosy in the cheeks.
There's, you're probably hearing a little bit of noise. This is a tap room. They are open. There are some customers in and out of here. Plus, they've actually got a little deli operation going on here. Tell me a little bit about that. What's that about?
So when we opened the doors, we knew that we needed to offer food option of some kind, but none of the owners had previous restaurant ownership experience. And so we understand through reading and talking to people that owning a restaurant is risky and difficult and can be expensive. And so we relied at the beginning on the local food trucks to come. We would schedule them, different food truck every night, and they would provide a dinner option for the customers here. That worked really well. Unfortunately, over time, a lot of the great food trucks, unfortunately for us, great for them, they have opened up brick and mortars and stopped running their food trucks, and so it got more and more difficult to schedule food trucks. It was also impossible that way to offer a lunch option, and so we kind of threw around a lot of ideas on what can we do here, and we have a fairly tiny space that it could be done in, and so we knew we weren't going to be able to do a full-fledged kitchen. We knew there were a lot of limitations. We still didn't have the experience or expertise to do it. And so the Dad's Favorites Deli is a local restaurant company. They focus a lot on their cheese spreads, which they sell in the local grocery stores all over Kentucky. They're fantastic. And we had been going to lunch across town at Dad's 2 or 3 times a week, bringing it back here to eat because we loved eating it.
Sure.
So like one day, kind of light bulb, like, why don't we see if they're interested in having like a Dad's 2 here? So 6 of the 7 days a week, Dad's is serving lunch and dinner, and on Sundays we still have food trucks come and offer a nice variety, a change of pace 1 day a week.
That's pretty unique, although from talking to Caitlin, I understand that it's not unique for Lexington.
Right. It lets people that come here judge us by our beer and Dad's by their food.
Right.
We knew we loved their food.
Yep.
They are, I think, the 1st or 2nd rated restaurant in town on Yelp in Lexington, and so they have a great reputation. We knew that they would knock it out of the park here, and so it really took the risk off of kind of both of us.
Caitlin was telling me you guys just won a medal in Ireland.
We won a bunch of medals, but we won a big medal for the most outstanding lager in the Dublin Beer Cup. So our Dunkel won most outstanding lager, which we're very proud of. I think it's over there behind us on the wall.
Oh, okay.
But we sent 6 beers, and all 6 beers won medals, but that won best in class lager. So we were pretty excited about that.
I guess so. That's high praise indeed, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's our
pretty
darling.
Yeah.
Our baby.
Yeah.
Our baby.
It is our most popular beer too. I mean, everyone loves it.
Really surprised us. So we opened the doors with 6 beers. We had a Scottish 70 Shilling, a Hefeweizen, Pilsner Helles, smoked lager, and Dunkel. And we assumed that either the Pilsner or Helles would be the one everyone bought, and then the other ones would be, the fun kind of tertiary, and as we added more. But from day one, Dunkel outsold everything by quite a bit, and I mean, there wasn't even it's not even like a ramp. It's like Dunkel and then everything else. So it was pretty clear from day one that Dunkel is what everybody enjoyed the most, and so we've embraced that. And even though it's in air quotes dark beer, it's not really. It's very approachable, sessionable, and people love it. So we're all the happier for it.
What's the alcohol content?
5%.
Wow, that is that is
5.2, but
yeah. That's what this is right here. I like it. I like it.
Thanks. It's really easy drinking, smooth.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sure is. I'll finish that later. Okay, what else do we have here in front of us?
So we've got our Pilsner. It's a German style Pilsner, so it's still really light, has this nice crisp kind of earthy dryness in the end. I really like it.
But there's enough hop character in it to be a German style Pilsner versus an American style, which is super light on the hops. German style is a little bit heavier on the hops. So it's a little bit more hop forward than a traditional lager. Most people, light lager people, are used to in the United States. But again, approachable, crisp.
Pilsners are a little tricky, right?
Yeah, there's nowhere to hide.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's kind of the biggest problem with it. We think ours is pretty good, but you have to give the big brands credit, the national brands credit, for making a very difficult to make a beer consistently. So.
In a half a dozen different breweries.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, number 2.
This one's our Hefeweizen. It's a very traditional German-style wheat beer. There's going to be a lot of banana, a little bit of clove, perfect for summer. It's one of our more popular ones as well. I feel like people who really like the Dunkel really like the Hefeweizen too.
Kind of chewy.
It's 50% wheat, so and we use a traditional German-style lager, or yeast, I'm sorry, that does bring out the banana and clove character in it. But otherwise, it's still would fit the Reinheitsgebot law. There's only 4 ingredients if you count malted wheat as the grain. So again, it's an interesting beer where you're using the yeast to give it a lot of character. A lot of beers, the yeast is not designed to give it any character, especially American style beers nowadays. The yeast is subdued on the flavor profile, and all the other ingredients are what come forward. So
Yeah. I like it, and I'm not a big wheat beer fan.
yeah, it's kind of a style that I think people either really like or they just avoid altogether.
Yeah. All right, we've talked about Dunkel. What do we
Yeah.
have here?
That's our wheat heavy Scotch ale, and people go crazy for this one. As a bartender, people ask for it year-round and get really put out when we don't have it. But we make it seasonally, so it really just keeps them coming back for more.
But it's kind of high. It's about 8.5%. We use a lot of different grains in it to get a complex character, but we try to emphasize the caramel notes in it. It's still relatively light on the palate, but there is some sweetness to it as well.
A little bit, yeah. I like that. That's tasty.
Thanks. We do a barrel-aged version of this one as well, our Setharoff. And we make that, once a year or so?
Yeah, once a year.
Empty a barrel?
Yeah.
That one's pretty good.
Since you've mentioned barrel aging, let's talk a little bit about barrel aging. I understand that you've got something in the barrel now.
We've got lots
Quite
of
a
things
bit,
in
yeah.
barrels now.
Yeah, so a lot of our barrels are from the Four Roses distillery. We're lucky in Kentucky having so many distilleries that we can rent a U-Haul or bring a pickup truck to a distillery, pay for in freshly empty barrels that are the bourbon was in them 3 or 4 days ago or less. Put them in a truck, come and put beer in them that day, and they're as fresh as you could probably get. So we're lucky having that opportunity in Kentucky. So we take advantage of it. Pretty much any beer that we make that's about above 7%, we'll put a small portion of a batch in a barrel to see how it turns out. So there are lots of barrels in the building. They're varied in age from, some of them we're purposefully souring. Those might be 2.5 years old all the way through, I think last time we put beer in barrels was 3 weeks ago. So we're tasting them all the time and seeing how they turn out and how the character changes over time. And when we feel it's ready, that's when we'd empty it and bottle it.
If I'm in the Lexington area and I want to find your beer somewhere, do you have that information on your website?
It's not on the website because it changes all the time, but there are, I think we're on tap at 75 restaurants and bars in town. Pretty much any non-chain restaurant that has actual draft is going to have us on tap.
Are you doing any beers with any of the other breweries?
We have done quite a few collaborations actually. We've done a collaboration with Country Boy Brewing, Ethereal Brewing, Mirror Twin. We did a Belgian ale, but we used lager yeast with Country Boy and Ethereal. That was kind of a fun oddball beer. It turned out really good, but the recipe on paper looked kind of crazy. It is a very tight-knit community of brewers that, it's kind of the give a cup of sugar or take a cup of sugar type of mentality.
Sure.
Like if I need something, call me, I'll give it to you. If you need something,
Yep.
you can take it from me. So.
Yep. So what's this last one?
This is our You Damn Skippy Peanut Butter Porter. This one's really popular too, and it's lighter bodied, so it's really easy drinking. I think the peanut butter definitely shines through without being super sweet,
Right.
which I really appreciate.
I think I've had some peanut butter flavored beers where it is the main flavor and nothing comes through, like your tongue can't perceive anything but the peanut butter. We wanted to avoid that, so the peanut butter is the first flavor, but it's not the only flavor.
Right. You get the kind of the traditional porter taste out of it as well on the back end of it. That's really good.
So this is one of our kind of success stories from a program we started early on. We call it Test Batch Tuesday. So every Tuesday we make a 30-gallon beer and we put it on tap. It gives us an opportunity to try new ingredients or brewing techniques or add fruit to a flagship that maybe that fruit is just really too expensive to make a big batch of, or we just want to see what it tastes like with that fruit. And so we can do a fun beer every week. And some beers get amazing feedback, and it's worth doing that test batch again to see what people think. And sometimes we're like, we're never going to use that ingredient again.
Seemed like a good idea at the time.
Yeah, it wasn't.
But this beer was a test batch, and we got so many messages on social media, emails about it, that we're like, we should probably make that again. So we made it again, and we got the same feedback. So we made a big batch of it. It sold out faster than any other beer we had ever put on tap.
Is that right?
Now it's one of the beers we make in the big tanks too. So we're really happy about that. It really kind of took us a little off guard because it's not really in our kind of niche product of German style lagers. But man, it got such good feedback, we just couldn't resist.
Yeah. It would have been stupid not to do it, I think.
Yeah, it has gotten some really good feedback, and we enjoy making it. It has kind of a sister beer, a coffee porter, that we make in much smaller quantities, but it's also really good. To me, it tastes just like cold brew. The coffee is from a local roaster. We get it. We would get it the day they roast it, but they said it needs 48 hours to rest. It like degasses or whatever. So it's only 48-hour-old roasted beans, and we put those in the robust porter to age for a week, and it's also a really good beer, but that one's generally only available in house here.
Well, guys, it's been great. I really appreciate the invite.
Thank you for coming.
It's been fun. Learned a lot.
Cheers.
Cheers.
And with that, see you next time.
Prost.